se fue.
This is Jason J. Lewis, the voice of Superman on Justice League Action.
This is Mark Waid, writer of Superman Birthright.
And you're listening to The Krypton Report.
And you're listening to Krypton Report.
Up in the sky, look!
It's a bird!
It's a plane! It's the Krypton Report!
The All Things Kryptonian podcast, including Superman and Supergirl.
We discuss games, movies, cartoons, TV shows, and comics.
Find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. Welcome to the Krypton Report, being recorded middle of the day. That's right, because James is off work and I'm off work, so we're getting to record early for a change, which is weird for us, because I think we've only ever done one other episode like this. I feel like...
Oh, we've done some real early morning, but
yeah,
it's usually real early or real late.
Exactly. I think when we did, was it our Justice League commentary? I think we did it like at a afternoon hour. So yeah. James, how are you at 4 o'clock today?
I need a nap.
All right. So that'll be this episode. Everybody remember, look up in the sky. And James, take it away, James.
There you go.
There we go. But all right.
Just listen to me snore, even though I don't.
Without further ado, we're going to kickstart this with some news. So one thing that I forgot to mention we did our fandom was, oddly enough, like as fandom was going on, Wizard had a online global sponsored Smallville reunion panel that was virtual that you could watch. I was tagged in it, and I didn't see it till later, but I have just begun to watch it. So yeah, everybody check that out. Hop on YouTube and find that, because that is it's pretty neat that it even exists, but it just kind of stunk that it was on the same day as fandom.
Yeah, it's weird. Just because, most people, people who liked Smallville are DC fans typically, and most of them would be more attentive to fandom because it's what's new and what's coming.
Right. Like, it just seemed like that. We were all looking over here when they were like, hey, check this out. So, yeah, it just, I don't know, it's weird. It was weird. The other thing is that was interesting was I mentioned, like, they dropped Superman Man of Tomorrow, like, on Sunday, when usually the movies come out Tuesdays, but they cut the panel from fandom. And it's a 45-minute panel that's you can find on YouTube, and it's awesome. Like, I watched it this morning, and everyone's there except the voice actors of Lobo and Lois Lane. So that's kind of a bummer, but everybody else is there, and it's hosted by Matt Bomer. So Matt Bomer of
Cool.
Famous Doom Patrol, but also
Superman and Unbound.
Yeah. So it was just kind of a real bummer that got cut, because I'm sitting here watching this like, wait a minute. Like, why was this taken? You could have cut some of the bull crap, no offense, panels and filler stuff, and
kind of like the half-an-hour game that the people didn't even seem like they knew how to play what they were playing.
That's exactly what I'm talking about, yeah.
I was glad to see the women come back, Patty Jenkins, Linda Carter, and Gal Gadot come back to announce Wonder Woman's 80th and show the logo for her 80th anniversary.
Oh, totally. Like, that was fine, but like, that game was stupid. Nobody liked that game. Like you said, even the people who were playing that game hated that game.
A lot of them didn't even look like they knew what was going on.
Because they didn't. They were like, are we supposed to be doing this?
Right.
So they could have cut that, and then some of those like claymation weird things that they did. But yeah, so that was just kind of a a real big bummer to me. If you have not checked out that panel, please go do, especially before you watch the film, because it will make you so jazzed for the movie. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that.
Well, dang, looks like I got an extra 45 minutes to watch before I jump into the movie here soon.
I mean, you don't have to. I'm just suggesting. You know me. You don't have to listen to what I say.
Well, I wanted
You
to
never
watch
do.
it
You're always like,
anyways.
screw you,
I
Tyler.
just haven't.
I defy you.
Yep.
You're not my dad.
Every time Tyler sends me a message, even when it's time to record, screw off, Tyler.
But yeah, I actually watched it like at 7 something this morning is when I started it. Or I don't remember. Solomon woke up early and we finished the movie and then we watched the panel afterwards. So it all kind of runs together after a while. But yeah, and in that panel, okay, we talked about that we're going to have a long Halloween movie, but they also announced that they're going to do Justice Society World War II as an animated movie. And that's literally all I know about it.
Really?
So
They announced that at the panel?
yeah, it was at the end of the panel, and same thing with the long Halloween.
Well, you know, on some of the Comic-Con panels, most years at San Diego Comic-Con, they always have a panel where they're introducing or talking about one of these new DC animated features, and they usually like give out the next year's worth of movies coming up. Mm-hmm. Normally we know what's coming up, but after Darkseid War, we only knew about Death in the Family and Man of Tomorrow. Now we know Batman, Soul of the Dragon or something.
Yep,
and,
Soul of the Dragon, Long Halloween, and now this.
The JSA thing, definitely. I mean, I really want to see Long Halloween adapted, and in a 2-part, that's going to be freaking sweet. But honestly, the JSA might have me more excited.
It might, just because it's
Just
something
because it'll
different.
be exactly. I mean, Long Halloween's a great story. I mean, it's one of the best Batman stories.
And if they don't do, what do you call it? If they don't jump on, what do you call it? Stargirl's like fandom right now, and make sure she's in the film, they don't know what's up. Like, yeah, I know it says World War II, but come on, they've played around with time.
Yeah.
I mean, they had her in
I'd say
Legends.
wasn't she with Legends back in World War II?
Yep. Man, I think I hear the thunder rolling. Good thing I'm in the Cave of Solitude. But,
Well, it's nice and sunny up here.
and for those who are listening, like, what does it matter? We only live like 3 hours away, if that, 2.5, depending on how fast you drive. Also heard, and I'm looking for more confirmation on this, that now Gotham City Sirens movie is back in development. And that's all I have on that. So that's definitely, I think that could serve as a really good proto-sequel to Birds of Prey. Like what Birds of Prey should have been. Just make it Birds of Prey versus the Gotham City Sirens, or Gotham City Sirens versus the Birds of Prey, or something like that.
Yeah.
Where we have an all-girl team versus an all-girl team.
I mean, you know, Margot is still a draw as Harley. She's going to be in the Suicide Squad.
And
More than likely,
awesome.
she's one of the yeah, and more than likely she's one of the unexpendable characters.
Oh yeah, they're gonna kill her off.
Yeah, they're not going to kill off Harley. So
The only ones I really think are safe is Harley and Waller.
yeah, more than likely. I mean, even Rick Flag is not. Even Rick Flag is expendable.
I mean, sadly, I think they would kill him just for humor purposes, but
Right. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to complain about seeing Margot as Harley again.
yeah, especially because every time I feel like we're getting something more, we're getting something better. and she's giving a good performance. And
her leather pants and leather jacket costume is perfect.
Right, it's like the Harley we've been waiting for.
Yeah, the Harley we've been wanting to see since they put her on screen.
So yeah, I totally I'm completely behind having the Gotham City Sirens film again. But we will see, because I don't get really excited until I see film.
Yep, cameras rolling.
And we've been burned by that with the Snyder, but that's, neither here than there right now. That's being rectified. All right, what else? Supposedly, there's people saying that they spotted in the trailer behind-the-scenes stuff for Suicide Squad, I don't know if you saw this, that Starro is supposed to be in...
I looked at the images, and there wasn't anything I could
see. That's what I felt like. That's what
I couldn't
felt
discern a Starro.
And that's why I was like, am I missing something here?
Like the main Starro is typically like this monstrous alien, monstrous-sized starfish with a gigantic eye. And, I know over the years he's been destroyed and regenerates to a small thing, but I couldn't discern anything saying that was Starro.
That's what I was like, okay, I saw that and I was like, I'm going to ask James, because we hadn't got a chance to talk about it. So I was like, I'm just going to bring it up.
I looked at the photos. I couldn't see anything. They just circled something that maybe looked like it had like some purple or something in the background.
I was reading people talking about today, and I was going to send this to you, but I was like, nah. I was like, this is just too much like fan crap. But it was someone saying that the Batman is really Tim Drake is Batman. And they're like, and this guy was like outlining it. And the person who posted this said, hey, does everyone remember back when people thought that Ben Affleck was Slade Wilson? And that at the end, Affleck was really, or Bale was going to show up as the real Batman and fight Deathstroke. And I'm like, yeah, there are some serious idiot people out there. That's all I'm going to say.
That's reaching, especially since the moment he was announced as Batman.
Oh, I know, but I just
as Bruce Wayne Batman.
People, man, they want to come up with these theories, and like, I'm not going to mention any names, but there are people who just come up with some stuff. You're just like, bruh, where are you? Like, you are going way up there. Like, I understand, like,
now if
there's more clues or stuff in it, like the whole that Jared Leto wasn't really the Joker, but he was Jason Todd as the Joker. I'm like, that's just like reaching from a trailer,
Yeah, I mean that was seriously reaching from a suit that's been damaged from who knows how many few years worth of Robin action. Him actually seeing action and surely being shot like Batman has, but it's armor, and then seeing a couple of scars on a promotional shot of the Joker, the reveal shot of the Joker. Like, people try and connect the dots, where it's like trying to connect dot 1 with dot 5,000.
Yep.
Just skipping everything in between.
The other thing that we missed when we were talking was Idris Elba's character in the Suicide film Bloodsport. I almost want to call him Bloodshot. I don't know why. Bloodsport is in jail because he shot Superman.
I say, wait, isn't Bloodsport a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie?
Yes, it is.
Yes, I know it is.
But yeah,
I used that thing recently where Jean-Claude Van Damme's blind. Ah!
Oh yeah.
I think that was in our group chat.
Probably was. But yeah, so we totally missed that. But okay, you know what I'm saying? I'm just like, all right, we missed that. But that's cool. That's something to be just interesting, because does that mean he shot him during the period of time, from Man of Steel to BVS? Or, after Justice League. Like,
I was going to say, yeah, or after Justice League. I mean,
but yeah, that's just kind of
I
cool.
mean, for all intents and purposes, the DCEU is still Man of Steel, BVS, Wonder Woman, Justice League, Suicide Squad, Aquaman, Shazam, Birds of Prey, and I mean Zack Snyder's Justice League, not not the theatrical release.
I think it's not going to matter. I think either way you go, I think the only thing
say the Suicide Squad.
I think the only thing we're going to walk away from the Whedon Justice League is the opening Batman scene. That would be, you know what, that wasn't too bad.
It was the scene itself was really good. I loved how he was perched on the building, how he was shown in the glass, how the guy saw him, and then turned around and tried to shoot him, and he was gone. And then the quick interaction between them, but the way he flipped off of the water tower to get down in front of him, I was like, that does not look. I was like, it's a guy on a wire.
Yeah.
It does not look like a guy who backflipped off of a thing 10, 12 feet above another guy. It looks like a guy on a wire.
It also, it looks weird because it looks like in one of the shots, his cape is attached to his thigh, almost like the way in Batman and Robin it was.
Right.
So, like I said, that's probably the only thing that will be like, oh, okay, and then maybe some of the Superman stuff, just because, like when he arrives at the end, we might that was kind of cool. But other than that, yeah, that's really I think all we can.
Well,
talk about
what's going to be interesting is to see Superman's role in Zack Snyder's Justice League compared to what we got in the theatrical, because so little, only some wide shots of Superman were Zack Snyder's stuff.
Exactly.
Everything else, every single shot that was a close-up of Henry Cavill was redone. It was all reshot dialogue. Every single close-up. So none of Henry Cavill's lines from Justice League, from the theatrical version, are going to be in this film because every single one was reshot.
And that's what's insane.
Like, they completely changed his story from what it was going to be in Zack Snyder's version. 100%. Like, every single shot was redone.
I mean, it just blows my mind.
Yeah.
And we've talked about it because of the suit and everything, of just how, it just.
What, that chrome underlay, that terrible, ugly ass suit. And that's coming from Man of Steel and BVS, and I thought they were great. And BVS was a step up from Man of Steel. And they only changed a couple of bits about the BVS suit.
Yeah. But it just, I don't get things, man.
No, I have no idea. I can't wait. I'm kind of hoping that the thing that we've seen about September 5th being the release date for Zack Snyder's Justice League
is false.
Is not true. Is false, because I don't want to wait another year for this movie.
Yeah, I've already been
but
waiting.
I will if I have to. I got no choice. But still, damn, another year? That movie is going to be 5 years old before we see it again.
I just think it's crazy when
before we see the real thing.
When Snyder's like, yeah, I filmed this thing back in what do you call it?
A month after BVS's release.
He's like, I filmed it in 2016.
Yeah. And he filmed it in 2016, and we're not going to see it until 2021. And likely, it seems, late 2021.
we'll just, you know what, we don't have anything to go off of. I'm just keeping my fingers crossed and praying to the gods. So, what else? News-wise, I knew there was something else. Oh, yeah, Hartley Sawyer. We knew that he was kicked out as Elongated Man from The Flash. Elongated Man will be recast for the new season of The Flash to finish up the storyline, but won't stay a permanent cast member. Which I guess you can get away with the Elongated Man because he changes his face to go undercover or whatever.
Yeah, they could probably easily write, you know, Ralph Dibny wanted for something this or that, you know.
Yep.
He's got to stay like undercover, quote unquote undercover, and until proved innocent, and then him and Sue Dibny leave the show.
And that's what, just like I said, with him, it makes it easy. You can get away with it for him, like, oh, okay. You know, there's like an in-story reason. So, that, I mean, yeah. Not really a whole lot to say, but also, if you're big into movie scores, they did drop one track from Wonder Woman 1984 by Hans Zimmer called Themyscira. Me and the kids checked that out. That was pretty cool. I got my kids really big into listening to music and scores, so it's pretty sweet, actually. My kids are awesome. And like they were cranky last night, and we were trying to leave, and I was like, "You guys want to hear the new track from Wonder Woman?" They're like, "Yeah!" And then my wife gets in the car like, "What do we listen to?" I was like, "The new song from Wonder Woman by Hans Zimmer." She's like, "Cool." Like, yeah,
Right.
dang straight, and yeah, it's cool. In fact,
It's cool because it's Hans Zimmer. It's a new track from Wonder Woman, and it shut the kids up.
yeah, and I paused it at one time, and Sayla's like, "Can we keep listening to the song from Wonder Woman?" I'm like, "Yes, baby girl, yes, we can." So that's all the news. I think we're good. Did we catch it all? I think so.
I think so. I think we touched upon all of it.
All right. So moving on, this week we got Action Comics 1024, The House of Kent Chapter 3. Man, this one was pretty good.
It was definitely a step up from the last issue.
I will say we don't have to go page by page, but you know, picking up that Connor, John, Superman / Clark, and Brainiac 5 are going after the Invisible Mafia, and you know, it's pretty intense. But oh, man, there's some great like just shots of like them showing up together, and I like the fact that Supergirl shows up. She's back as part of the family here, and it's interesting because there's a panel where she asks Connor, "Are we related?" And he explains who she is, so she's like, "Okay, so no."
Yeah.
I mean, they still.
So I'm going to say no.
I'm like, technically, you are. He's part your cousin, like half cousin. You know, like
Yeah. I'm your cousin from another reality.
yeah. I mean, there's some great just shots in this. I love just seeing the Superman family being really built. This is probably the best thing that I've enjoyed Bendis doing, because I love seeing, you know, Superboy, Clark, Superman, Supergirl here.
Yeah.
And
It's definitely up there. The only issue I'm having, and it's not necessarily Bendis's fault. There's nobody there. Come on. I don't think that it's necessarily Bendis's fault, just because of the way Snyder's run on Justice League had ended, and then, you know, they're all in death metal.
mm-hmm.
Like, it's like what takes place in between, like, you know, some of the final battles they had with Lex, and then the time they walk through the door, and then when does everything else happen that's going on in every other book?
Yeah.
Especially with the main 7. Like, so it kind of, everything kind of stands out when it comes to that, not just Bendis's stuff. Because like Young Justice, the Young Justice number 17 takes place before 1023 Action, because they're helping with the cleanup outside of, I don't know, the Hall of Justice or in Metropolis. They're helping with the cleanup, and it's before in 1023, but it's also, yeah, it's before 1023 because that's at the beginning. They're in the Fortress of Solitude. Clark and Connor, they're both in the fortress in 1023, but just the latest issue takes place before both 1023, 1024 of Young Justice.
Yeah. It gets difficult.
16 and 17, they're before what's happening right now in Action. I might have said that backwards before, but that was right
No,
that
you're
time.
fine. So, yeah, it is, and it does get difficult because, like you said, you are very much like, what is going on? Like, where does this happen? Where does this go on?
And in this issue 1024, we lost Deputy Chief Melody Moore.
Yep, I was going to let you say that, which
Yeah.
is a big deal. I mean, that's a part of the emotional heart of this, because she was a Bendis created character that introduced in the start of his run. That's
In the start of Action, yeah, when the fires were happening.
So, yeah, that was a big deal. And, like, we see Superman react. Like, he cries and, like, it was a friend. He says, like, she was a friend.
Yeah.
And
he offered his endorsement to her, which is something that Superman doesn't do.
exactly.
You know, he doesn't get political. But the reason the FBI showed up at the planet, I guess we could have seen why they were probably showing up at the planet, but in this issue it's explained.
Yeah.
They're there because of Leon being the head of the Invisible Mafia.
And I mean, it makes sense, you know. I love Lois, like, talking with the FBI agent and everything, but man, the heart of this issue was her death.
Yeah, it was the death of Melody Moore.
I love the line where Superman says, I'm going to pull it up right here, hold on, where he says, it's right here. Here he says, she's not here, she's out here somewhere hiding from me this entire time, but now I'm looking for someone hiding from me. I'm looking for blank spots in my x-ray vision. I'm looking for a lead-lined anything. Seems this invisible mafia built themselves on avoiding my attention. So now, I love that because now he knows, okay, we're going to find these people.
Yeah. Well, which is something people talk about too. Like, if he can hear and see everything, how can anybody stay away from him? How can anybody get away from him? Well, I mean, these people came up by avoiding him, by avoiding his gaze, by avoiding his attention, by avoiding even specific words that he could hear, that would draw his attention. But the thing is, he focuses on, like, the here and now most of the time. Like, he focuses on his immediate vicinity. Like, he's not listening to every single person's conversation around the city, even though he can hear them. He's not looking at every corner and through every wall because that's an invasion of privacy.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't do that unless he has a reason to. Now he's up in the sky trying to x-ray the entire city.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely correct, and I love the point where you see them all using their X-ray vision, and like they're talking about stuff that they're seeing, and it's just funny to hear like they're all like, "Ugh, I've seen some stuff I wish I didn't see."
Yeah.
And I don't know, I like the dynamic of all of them together. So.
Yeah, it's great to have the House of L together, the House of Kent.
Yes,
as it is. And you got all four of them, and I mean even Crypto. Did he show up or
no.
He was with Kara last time I saw her in the last issue, so that's why I brought it up. But. So and then this last shot where all four of them are standing and all you see is their symbols and their lit up red eyes.
I was gonna say that was my favorite piece of art in it.
Definitely. One, because most of them they're all hidden by shadow. When it comes to Romita Jr.'s art for the entire family.
I never saw that.
Because some stuff's good, some stuff's not. Romita Jr.'s art is hit or miss for me.
You know how I
actually think this issue, his art is actually pretty good for the most part.
I will agree.
Even when it comes to like people's faces. Like I prefer the art in what he's doing in Action than I did what he was doing for friggin' Black Label for Superman Year One.
Yes. To me, his art is always like, to me, his art's always something that I enjoy, but I enjoy it more with like oddball characters.
Yeah.
Like Kick-Ass.
Yeah. It does have an oddball look to it, but it also looks a little cartoony. You could almost see it playing out like a cartoon.
Yeah. And that's what makes it so weird.
Which is okay.
When you're trying to like convey. That's why like in a book like
he's not my favorite,
Hit
but he's
Girl
not a bad artist by any means.
When they're like super violent, like super highly violent, it works for me because I'm like, oh, there is that almost cartoonish to it because it's just so much.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I'm interested in the next issue because they've got this person. I'm not even sure of this person's name, but they've got this person who has been Leon's eye in the sky. Like he collects data. He collects data on every member of Superman's family, and then he keeps an eye out for like where Superman is. So like back before when they would say, yeah, Superman's like on the other side of the world doing this or whatever, it's like this is the person who's had eyes on him, making sure that when he was out of town was when the Invisible Mafia could do some stuff actively.
Mm-hmm. And that's the person they all drop in on.
Yeah, that's the person they have in that splash page of all four of them with their eyes lit up.
So, yeah, I'm with you. I'm very intrigued to see.
Actually interested in what's coming out from the next issue for Bendis. So, I mean, that's a good thing because that actually is not that's not been the case for a while.
Yeah, I mean, like this whole thing, like I've been excited just because.
Connor's back, baby.
Yeah, but I've just been excited for the fact that I just have thoroughly enjoyed the idea of the Superman family. And I feel like that's something that's been missing for a while of just Superman having a family. Like it's always It's one of those things that's always interesting to me how much, like, there's the Bat family, but Batman's always like, yeah, Batman's a loner. He doesn't need anybody. He does this all on his own. I'm like, he's got more sidekicks and partners than anybody else in DC continuity.
Yeah.
You know,
Like, just look at the Action 1000 splash page where they're taking that family photograph.
but even then, like, they're not
There's
all
like
there.
14 people there.
Like, I can name some more. Like, Janine and I were talking today. We were playing Injustice with the kids because that's what we do as a family. We sit around and play fighting games. And, you know, she makes a comment about, just like, you know, it'd be cool to have a Batman game like this. And I said, yes, it would. Just a straight Batman game where it makes more sense that these people are fighting without, you know, having to have superpowers every time. And I started naming some of the, like, random characters that they could have. And she's like, yeah, you would know that. Like, that's a real character? I'm like, yeah, it's a real character.
That sounds so obscure. It can't be.
You know, and
Yeah,
I'm just like, yeah, it's a real character. And that just, to me, makes more sense to have that than, like, the Injustice. Like, come on, the Flash versus, you know, some of these characters, you're like, if I could just use my, like, speed like I'm supposed to, we wouldn't have this issue. But
Yeah, definitely.
But all that to say that this issue I'm actually excited for. I'm actually, you know, I like seeing the Super family together. I've said for a while I really hope that they create some sort of Connor moniker for him, you know, instead of like Super Dude or, you know what I'm saying, something. You know, we have
Right.
Supergirl and, you know, at one point we did have Superwoman. With Lana, you know, back in Rebirth, the start of it.
Right.
So, but all right, man. So we got the news and that comic out of the way, but there's some other things that we wanted to talk about.
Well, also, just two things I wanted to point out. I think next week, Tom Taylor's Black Label Hellblazer's coming out.
Oh,
I
yeah.
am definitely picking that up.
I saw you post
Tom
about
Taylor's, right? Yeah, I saw it on. I saw it shared by Tom Taylor and said next week, and that cover it was Black Label and it was Hellblazer. So yeah, Tom Taylor's doing a Constantine book, which is going to be it's gonna be amazing. I'm sure it is. Like
everything that Black Label has put out. It's like they let the creators do their own thing. The story's a little bit more solid because they're not bound by continuing continuity, and you know, they're short, and I like it. So I've really enjoyed pretty much everything.
Yeah, for the most part, I've everything I've read so far. There's stuff that I haven't read yet that I do want to read, but I mean, I'll get to it. Also, you know, Detective Comics 1000 was a big thing. Did you see the ad for Detective Comics 1027?
Yes.
Celebrating 1,000 issues since the Dark Knight's first appearance.
Yeah, and that's something people
Like-
forget, that there was 26 issues of Detective Comics without Batman.
Yeah, before Batman showed up. So this is really Batman's Detective 1000. Like, I'm definitely gonna pick this one up too.
Oh yeah, I am. Yeah, I've been getting Detective. Like, it's not been as strong as I would have liked, but you know, I'm reading the Joker War, and I've been.
I'm reading the Joker War too. I need to check out a bunch of the tie-ins. I've only read Batman so far.
So, you know, that's just. I've tried. At first, I was like, I'm not going to do all these tie-ins, and then it's been really good. So I've been like, okay, I'll do the tie-ins.
Yeah, Joker War has been good.
Detective's the weakest one for me that I've read so far. But
I was reading Detective after 1000. I was reading Detective, and last time I read an issue though was back when Mr. Freeze and Nora Freeze was still a thing.
oh yeah,
So it's been a little while.
I need to get caught up. But all right, so we've been wanting to talk about this for a while, and we really haven't had time, and now we have time because we're looking at our calendar, and our content's got shifted around a lot. Next year is going to be a busy year. But so let's take a kind of a trip through the DC universe here. But first things first. For those who don't know, there's a little TV series going to drop next week called The Boys Season 2. Now, for some reason, Brian took forever to watch this thing, the first season, because he was over at my house, and I was like, "You want to watch it?" He's like, "Yeah," and we pretty much watched almost all of it together. But there's a character on there that's kind of the foil, not foil. What's the word I'm thinking of? It's like doing an evil Superman without actually having to do evil Superman.
Right.
Homelander. And it's just an interesting look at what type of character Superman could be. So we've really enjoyed watching kind of that idea. And I mean, basically The Boys is a very adult, mature show that takes a lot of inspiration from Zack Snyder's Justice League as far as look, aesthetics, marketing. And their big team was called the Seven, and you have basically in the comics there was even a person called Jack from Jupiter that was supposed to be the Martian Manhunter of the group. But you have
really?
Homelander is your Superman, Queen Maeve is your Wonder Woman, The Deep is your Aquaman, Black Noir is kind of Batman-ish, but I guess there's another character that's more Batman-ish that's not there right now. A-Train is supposed to be kind of like the Flash, but Brian and I talked about how he can just run fast. He's not really like the Flash, because the Flash can do so much more.
He's probably more like Quicksilver or Speedball or something, that when he's in super speed, he's got hyper density or something like that. That's when he ran through what's Huey's girlfriend on the curb. The reason she exploded the way she did, because of that hyper density or something.
Exactly.
From his speed.
And this, I talk about this because this is a way from, you can explore the idea, like I said, of an evil Superman or an evil Flash or whatever, without actually taking those characters and making them evil. Because
without doing injustice.
Yeah, without doing a disservice to where now everybody's oh man, I want to do what do you call it, Overlord Superman. That's who he should be. And you're just really, that's all you guys can really think of doing. So this is a way of doing that, and it's interesting. Like I said, it's very much for mature adults. And there is a scene, and this season being that it was last year, where Homelander has a heat vision kill, a massive heat vision kill. Besides, also, there's scenes of what heat vision looks like attacking people and killing people.
Yeah, when he goes into the warehouse and he's killing everybody, he just blasts everybody with his heat vision.
That you would not see Superman do, because you'd be nope. So it was wow, that's really cool. And then because it was last year, if anyone remembers, there was a small movie that came out called Brightburn, where it was basically the anti-Man of Steel, and it has a heat vision kill. So we got thinking about it, man, who had the better heat vision kill of All right, so here's a little insert. You're going to hear the sweet, sweet voice of someone who's been missing for far too long and get her input. I'm welcoming back the greatest thing in my life, the sweet, amazing Jania. And we're going to talk about heat vision. Yes, so Jania.
Yes, Tyler.
Now that I have you here finally once again, we just finished watching The Boys season 1 again. We're prepping for season 2, and we thought it'd be interesting to discuss the Homelander Heat Vision kill, being kind of a evil Superman, and then just for fun, we brought in just a conversation of Brightburn being like an evil Superman, which you have never seen the film.
Nope.
You just watched the clip I just showed you where Brandon kills his stepdad with heat vision.
Right.
So which heat vision kill do you think was better or worse or more intense? Like,
Okay, well, definitely the one in Brightburn was more intense, I would say. First off, you have the dynamic of father and son. That within itself is pretty intense. Secondly, you've got the fact that the back of his head exploded.
And he caught fire.
The one thing that I have to say that I didn't like about that, though, other than the obvious, because I mean, how can you say that you actually like watching something like that? But whatever. Honestly, like the one thing that I didn't like about it was the fact that he yelled. The dad yelled the whole time. As soon as that heat touches the brain in general, it's going to
like sever the nerves.
Yeah.
And
like,
pain receptors, you're done.
You're not going to be able to freaking talk. You're not going to be able to say anything.
You know what?
You're not going to be able to, like, yell. How is that even... No.
I never thought about that till just now, about him, like, yelling. But, all right.
That was the first thing that popped in my mind, was I was like, yeah, no, that's not reality. He would be, like, done. To, like, 0.2 seconds into it. It would just be done.
He's like, Yeah. I think that's definitely, like...
I think hers was more believable.
Hers? Okay. So, having seen Brightburn, the film, there is an emotional punch that is his dad. But I think the emotional punch of the scene in The Boys where you have this built relationship...
He basically gives up on the one thing he loves.
Yeah, and,
quote unquote.
You know, when it's Homelander's reference that he found out the real truth, and then she breaks down and Billy's sitting there like, what? And then he just, like he almost, like, controls it in the sense of, like, he burns through her eyes, through her face and everything. There's no fire, but it's very, like, controlled. And then comparing it to earlier scenes in the episode where he's just, like, blasting people and cutting down terrorists.
He puts his emotion into it, because you can see that he's even stricken as he's doing it. It's heartbreaking for him. And I don't know, I see it as, like, I don't think that character has the ability to love. I've never seen Brightburn, so I can't really speak on the character of Brandon as much, but I don't think Homelander has the capacity for love. He just has what he thinks should be. I think he's too apathetic.
His emotions are, yeah, exactly. His emotions, like, this is what it's supposed to feel like. This is what this is supposed to be, so I'll pretend, because I actually don't know.
Yeah. I mean, you think about it, they have a very freaky relationship in the sense that it's almost mother-son, but it's also some kind of weird lover relationship. So he has no actual conception of what relationships are supposed to be like. The only person he cares about, he doesn't even have a real relationship with. So it's like, I don't know. I can see it. It makes sense that he would go down that path. Watching that scene, it was like the entire time I knew he was either going to kill the baby or he was going to kill her or he was going to do both. And it was like...
It was very tense.
It just was... It was what it was, kind of a thing. So, yeah.
I agree. The heat vision was just... It was great. And they're both very similar
like just the way it was done. But what's crazy is earlier in The Boys, the scene where Billy took the baby and had the baby and it shot like blue heat vision and attacked. I thought that was just kind of cool, like just for parody, because like Homelander's is red.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool if you think about if Homelander's like Superman, how Superman's was always red.
Mm-hmm.
And then like with Supergirl, the series, they did the blue heat vision. That was kind of what the baby was.
It's cool.
It's cool. It's kind of neat to like explore sort of like these alternate like Superman character stand-ins. I can't think of the word I'm trying to think of.
Yeah, you're fine. Doppelgangers. Not really.
I was going to say allegory, but that's not the...
It's late. We're both tired.
Yeah, it's 1 o'clock in the morning.
Shoot.
This is the only time we get away from the children.
Yep, it's quiet right now because it's super late.
But thank you, Jania. The listeners, we miss your voice.
You are so very welcome.
I miss your voice.
Well, good. I'm just working my tush off.
A fake Superman. So yeah. What Brightburn? Give us a rundown a little bit about Brightburn, a little bit more, James, since you rewatched it last night.
Well, I mean, it's so the character doesn't grow up to be this person. Like this is as soon as the powers manifest for this person. For Brandon Breyer is the name of the character, but I mean, it's almost everything Superman. It's like a ship crashes in the woods near a farmhouse of this couple who can't have kids, and they take the child in and raise him as their own. But when he turns 12 years old, like the ship starts to send signals to him, messages, and like he's like sleepwalking. He's almost under like a hypnosis of the ship or something. He doesn't even find the ship until later on, but just like the influence that the ship is having on him, it's like turning him evil. He basically finds out that he's super strong and invulnerable. He develops his heat vision, his flight. I mean, he is like an evil. He is like a little Superman. And basically, he eventually understands what the ship is telling him, and he says the ship is telling him to take the world. So basically, like it's telling him to take over the world. So he just starts doing whatever he wants, and he's killing people. Like the girl he likes, even she let him fall to the ground and wouldn't help him up. He broke her hand. He mangled her hand. Her mother said don't talk to him, and trash talked to 12-year-old boy. Well, he showed up and he murdered her, which was an intense scene. The most creepy thing in that whole movie is when she's pulling that shard of glass out of her eye, out of her eyeball.
Yes, it is.
But like they show his heat vision only a couple of times in the movie. One time he cuts through a freezer door, like a walk-in freezer. He cuts that in half with his heat vision. But they don't show it from his side. They show it from her side. So it's just like a torch cutting through, melting the door straight down the middle.
It's very well done. I mean,
yeah, very well done. Yeah.
And like you were messaging me last night when you were talking about it, I was like, the thing to take is like we're so used to seeing all these superhero comic book film. We'll just say comic book films, but this is really paced and done as a horror film. So
yeah,
the pacing is faster. Horror films usually a good horror.
The movie's
film
only 90 minutes long.
Yeah, it's only going to get you
including credits.
A horror film's only going to be like a half hour, an hour and a half, because any longer than that you're going to have problems. So they do a really good job of keeping that, getting us in, getting us to like the characters, and then basically saying, "Here you go."
Yeah. So really, the only times he uses heat vision is that scene, and then when he kills his dad. And his dad, had witnessed certain things going on with him, and then his attitude and stuff like that, and he's starting to get freaked out about him because like all the chickens were dead, they were killed. They'd been having problems with the wolves doing it, but they weren't taken for food. Mm-hmm. The chickens weren't; they were just mutilated. So like he was convinced it was him. They find out that he was at his aunt's house, and his aunt's boyfriend or his uncle or whatever, went taking him home, and he killed him on the way home and stuff. But so the dad takes him out to the woods to kill him. Like,
yep.
He knows that he's not human, but this isn't the Kents, and it's not Clark, So,
but we're made to feel so much like it is that it's almost unnerving, because we're like, no, don't do this. But yeah, he says.
Well, you're made to feel that they're decent parents. Like they try to raise him well. I mean, you're shown that much.
They try to, but it doesn't work.
Yes. Yeah. Well, evil alien influences aside. But he shoots him in the back of the head, and then the bullet just bounces off. So then he's running for his life, and he's pleading for his life after Brandon catches him, knocks him to the ground, and then he heat visions him right in the eyes, and burns a hole through the back of his skull.
And he catches on fire, and he's screaming, and people listen to the clip of Jania talking. She points out some really interesting stuff. The fact that like that's definitely more of like a horror film trope, because that would not happen in yes, it's not real life, but he would be dead before he could like scream and catch on fire at the intensity of what this scene is doing.
Well, yeah, what it seems like is like he's beaming me. He starts the beams, so it starts to burn him. So it starts to burn into him, and then he increases the intensity, so then it goes all the way through him. Kind of gives you that terrifying, like burning alive thing, and then once it melts through his head, then he's just done.
Poor dad.
Yeah. That's a brutal scene. Quite a bit of the things that happen in this movie is really brutal. I mean, the way he uses his speed and his flight and his durability, like the way he flies through the sheriff and he just explodes all over the lawn. And then when he smashes the officer, the sheriff's deputy, like he's slamming her against the ceiling and the floor, up and down, back and forth against the walls and stuff, and then he throws her through the room, across the room, and into the window and stuff. And like the way she's mutilated and like in pain for number of seconds before she ends up dying. It's just, yeah, it's definitely a horror movie, but it also gets you to thinking like if people wanted to really write some of these superheroes in a horror sense like that, like it could be pretty intense.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So Homelander, his kill scene is he kills the woman that he has a very weird motherly connection to, but yet relationship connection to, and it's almost the same thing. Like, he burns her, like, eyes. He does this almost the same kind of setup. And
Yeah.
both clips
It doesn't
we
go
found
through
on
her
YouTube.
head, but it just like fries it fries her inside of her skull.
Yeah, like he doesn't shoot through her. And I mean, I think her kill is more brutal of like the emotional tension of the scene, because like her baby is over there to the side, the Homelander had, and he's had this strong love, relationship like with her, and like earlier in the episode they had just like made love before, and it's really very interesting, and then he just kind of snaps on her.
Yeah. And he's like jealous of the baby or something. Like, yeah, it's really weird.
Freud would have a field day with this guy.
Yeah.
So, it's just like the scene is, you're just like, holy crap. Like, I don't know, like the way the Brightburn part is done, you're like, I can see it. It makes sense why he would do this. But the Homelander part just catches you off guard. And like I said, both scenes and both kill from Brightburn and from the boys of Homelander are on YouTube. So, check them out if you haven't seen the series, if you're just wondering. But it was just kind of fun to kind of compare, because both kills are so similar.
Right. And then in that warehouse scene when Homelander goes in there and he's using his heat vision, like when he hits people, it's just like it's almost like a high intensity laser beam, like what you would think of getting your arm sliced off by a lightsaber or something.
Yes.
Like it's instantaneous. It's just boom, and like a quick shot with his eye beams, and like he cuts people in half.
And you're just like, wow. But where everybody's we're used to Superman using his heat vision. Yeah, he uses it. I mean, I don't know what Brian was talking about, how he never thought heat vision be used as like, I don't know, a weapon or an offensive technique or an offensive move. Like, I don't know where that came from. It's not like he just uses it to shoot down missiles or melt bullets or something. Like, I mean, it's
he's
also
used it in fights and all kinds of stuff.
Because we've also talked about like how heat vision, other than Smallville and then in Superman Returns, which is like the one thing they took, I think, from Smallville, where it's more like heat, like it ripples, like you see like fire type
right.
ripples and like that wave of like how it's heat.
Yeah, it's literally like almost a focused torch, like it's almost like a plasma cutter or a laser. It's just heat.
Everything else we've seen with Superman has been very much like a laser beam, a heat beam. I mean, even in The Boys, there's a scene where one of the main characters finds a baby that can shoot heat, and he picks up the baby, and the baby's shooting heat, and it's like the blue, the way they do it on Supergirl series. And then Homelander's like the red. So yeah, every other depiction of like Superman or Supergirl, it's been the focused laser beam heat, which to me I love, because like my favorite X-Man has always been Cyclops, because I'm like, Cyclops could literally just sit back and use his optic blast, which is laser eyes, if you want to get technical.
Well,
and just keep people away from him.
Technically, it's a force. It doesn't even have. It's not like heat, like to melt stuff. Like it's literally like a force. Like it'll blow things away. It won't like make things explode because of heat and stuff like that. Like his optic beam is actually like a physical force. So like in the first X-Men movie, when he blows that metal door off of the hinges or off of the rail, like that's what would happen. It would punch it. It would make it, it would hit it and send it flying. It wouldn't be like Brightburn or Superman, where like he would use his heat vision and cut the thing down the middle.
So it's just an interesting thing that I always have loved.
Right.
Like, that concept. That's why I like the fact that, young Bry did not think of it like that. It boggles my mind.
Yeah. Well, like in Superman, Batman, Public Enemies, when when Batman says your heat vision doesn't have radiation, does it? No, it doesn't. It's not a radioactive thing, It's literally basically like fire from his eyes.
It's energy, because like later, we have the whole solar flare thing where he's, basically putting out his absorbed sun energy.
Yeah. Or like Man of Steel, where his eyes are glowing red, but you don't see the beam coming from his eyes, but he melted the tunnel through the ice.
Awesome.
Or later on when he's fighting against Zod, and Zod comes down with that big old eye beam, and he uses it to such intensity that the beam melts instantly. That the beam melts just like that. Like he can control that intensity.
We're not fans at all. We don't watch this stuff in detail. Nope, not at all. But so we like our heat vision. It's definitely one of my favorite Superman powers. I'm completely cool with him using it more often, But we're going to shift to another corner of the DC world. There's been a lot of talk about this just because now with HBO Max it's more readily available. It was free for a while, and with today's cultural climate, is they have the Watchmen TV series. And Phil and I, if anyone has followed Capes and Lunatics, the great and powerful Phil, much like the great and powerful Oz, him and I recorded episodes as we were going back through reading different Watchmen stories, because we were talking about the before Watchmen to see if any of that would play into the series or not. And then we reviewed the series. But James and I were just like talking the other day, and we were having this long discussion. I was like, we should just do this for the podcast. I'm like, we should have recorded everything we just said, and we didn't do it because we were stupid. So we decided we would just go ahead and kind of chat about it because, the Watchmen universe is becoming more prevalent in the DC world, especially, with Doomsday Clock that we had. That's I got to reread at some point.
Yeah. I bought it part 1 and part 2 hardcover, so I have those up there, and I'm going to crack those open and read it all the way from front to back. Because the story, we talked about it at the time, like it lost its impact being delayed. A story that should have been out month after month for 1 year took 2 years to get released.
Was it 2 years or 2 years plus?
It might have been just over 2 years, but it was pretty close to the 2-year mark.
Oh, it was over because
it was at least 2 years.
It started the same month that Justice League, the movie, came out in 2017. November of 2017. Just think about that for a second, James. Where were we? But yeah, I like the Watchmen. Like we're gonna one day here. We're gonna do a commentary of the Watchmen film, just because we what do you call it? Love Zack Snyder, and
it's DC, and we love Zack Snyder.
And we've done all the DC movies so far, and we have not done that one.
Almost, yeah. We did Suicide Squad, but that kind of got screwed up.
Yeah, we're gonna do that again with the Suicide Squad.
I was say, did we?
Mm-hmm.
Did we do? I know we did the Snyder movies.
Yeah,
we've done Man of Steel, BVS, and Justice League.
We're gonna do Wonder Woman next month.
Okay, I was gonna say we haven't done Wonder Woman, we haven't done Aquaman or Shazam.
Yep, those are planned. We gotta give them a little bit of time to breathe, though. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
So that we go back, we've had time to reflect, so it's not too soon to do commentary reviews.
The publication date, though, for Doomsday Clock is November 22nd, 2017 through December 18th of 2019.
Yep.
So over 2 years.
It kills me. But That just to say that Watchmen has been a part of DC's DNA recently when they did the Before Watchmen, the film and everything. So the series, we were all kind of like, okay, so what is the series going to entail? And then it kind of came out and we're like, okay. And then basically we find out that the series is a continuation or a sequel to the book. Now it does use some film type imagery, but the story is a sequel to the Watchmen comic. And, one day Phil and I are supposed to review the Watchmen comic to help people who have read that or haven't read that. So good luck with that, people out there. One day Phil and I will do it.
That's a big book, man.
It is a big book.
It's a big book, and every time you read it, like decades later, as you change, you pick up different things out of that book.
You do. But so James, you go ahead and you lead the conversation here about Watchmen, this series, and I highly recommend it. I'm just gonna say this out the bat. I highly recommend it to anybody to watch. I will say that it has moments that are really tough, especially the violence. But I'm a person and I hate saying it so generically, but I can't stand racism. I think people hating people, I think is the dumbest thing over. If you're a jerk or someone who's mean and treats people like crap, I can understand being man, I don't like you, but just people hating people because of something as stupid as skin color or
color, culture.
It's something that I myself, I hate, and I really just don't understand it. Because I don't hate anybody. I don't, we can be different and get
granted,
along.
Yeah, granted, I'll admit, there are places I don't want to go and neighborhoods and things like that I don't want to live in because there are, I don't know, quote unquote, stereotypical violence and things like that in those areas. But it's also, and just because those areas are predominantly one thing or one color, doesn't mean that there aren't people who live there that are good or people who live there that perpetuate the violence who aren't that, who aren't a color. You know what I mean?
No, I know exactly what you mean.
That's just the real world. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And I hate that that's the world, but I do what I can to change it. You know what I'm saying? I teach my kids, it's amazing when you try to explain racism to children because they just look
they're
at
just
you.
people. There's no difference.
They look at wait, they don't like this person because of this? And you're like, yeah. And they're like, Daddy, that doesn't make sense. And you're like, yeah.
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't.
It doesn't, son. It really doesn't. I always use the M&Ms. That's my, that's how I explain, culture to my children. A little bit different on the outside, but, same on the inside.
Yeah. So, yeah, the show, it's a sequel per se to the comic book. They do use the squid, the giant squid that has the big psychic event when it dies after it crashes into New York and kills half the population of New York. It's because of the psychic blast. They do discuss that in the Watchmen book, and they really carry that over into the show. But like you said, there is imagery like they don't. It definitely seems more of a sequel to the book, but then they also don't discredit the movie in any way. But as you were talking about, the show opens with the Tulsa massacre, the Black Wall Street 1921, was it?
Yeah. I'm horrible
So-
at dates, which is horrible to say, but like me and numbers don't get along. But that sounds right.
Which is just crazy to think about, because people don't know that. Like that is a historical thing that people don't know. I didn't know about it until I saw it on this.
I didn't
and
know
almost
that
every
Bass
single
Reeves-
person I've listened to, nobody knew about it. Like, I even heard something from, I forget what podcast it was, and they were talking about the show, but they were like, no, we got an email from somebody who lives in like
Yes.
Tulsa or around there, and they're like, they don't even know about it. Like it's something that's hidden. It's something that's not taught or spread around that this happened.
I didn't even realize that Bass Reeves was a real person.
I didn't know that either.
There's a comic book that's come out. It's part of a company that's doing comics that are being released exclusively through Walmart. And I picked up the first issue because the artist is actually a friend of mine on Facebook, and I thought his art was, really cool. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna support, And I got it, and in the back of it, it talks about the real Bass Reeves. And dude, I'm not gonna say anything, but I recommend everybody just check out the comic, but just look up Bass Reeves, period. Just the accomplishments and what this person went through being a lawman.
Yeah. A lawman of color back in those days.
It's, continue the story.
I mean, hell, even these days. So the show opens up with that, and this family sends their son off with a note, which is very interesting because the note is written on a piece of German propaganda from World War I.
Very interesting.
So yeah, that puts kind of like another level, because even as they go later on, they show the father was in World War I, and they were showing the racism even then, sending black soldiers to the front lines to die first, and the Germans like trying to appeal to them and saying like, you're being used to die. Come join us, this and that, things are better. And so that was quite interesting, chronologically. Like they show some of the dad, and then they show this kid. And then as the story progresses, you find out that kid is the old man Will. You find him, you find him, or she comes across him at the end of episode 1. And it's this man who's over 100 years old who's saying that he hung this guy from a tree. So that was pretty wild. And then how they got to explain how that happened. Like
The nostalgia pills. You can hide your memories in pills. People can take them. That was pretty. I mean, we're bouncing all around, people. This ain't.
Yeah, this isn't a review of episode 1 through 9. This is a review of the series as a whole. The nostalgia pills, the nostalgia episode where she's like literally living through his life, which we find out that old man Will, is her grandfather, who she never knew her entire life.
Sister Knight,
But-
our main character.
Yes,
Regina
King, is that her?
Regina Awesome.
Yeah.
Should be her
Yes.
name.
Which her scenes as Sister Knight, man, she kicked some serious ass. Like the action in this show was top notch. But he turns out to be her grandfather, and in turn he turns out to be Hooded Justice.
That is the coolest
From the Minutemen.
part of this is you find out that he's Hooded Justice, and it makes me want to go back and re-examine like Watchmen the book. That he actually disguised himself as a white man.
Yeah, he used white face paint over his eyes, like how Battinson is embracing like the black makeup around the eyes for underneath the cowl.
Yes,
Like He had to wear white eye makeup.
So everyone thought, which, I mean, granted, I think it's kind of cool just because it's one more layer of not knowing who's behind. Just like I thought, like in Kick-Ass, you know, how he puts on a fake mustache, you know, Big Daddy does. And then like the old Batgirl where she wore a wig as part of her costume to just kind of hide another element of who she is. So
Right.
I think that's kind of cool.
Well, also it was for the racist times. I mean,
oh yeah, I mean,
what was
yeah,
really
totally.
cool
but,
was how
yeah.
he embraced. It was really cool how he embraced it, though. Like his costume was dark. He had a noose around his neck because he was threatened with a noose around his neck because he was a lawman. He was a black man as a police officer, and for the like. It was really good because like there was a scene where like they stood up for him, and then down the line because he was trying to get at people who they knew and their clan connections and stuff. Then they turned and they threatened him just like any other black guy at the time, you know. And they put a noose around his neck and told him, you know, they'd hang him and all this stuff if he didn't just, you know, go with the flow. And so that became part of Hooded Justice's costume was that noose. Like he was empowering himself with that, but he also knew that if people knew it was a black guy underneath that hood, then it would be a black guy perpetuating violence. But because for all intents and purposes, it appeared a white guy under there, he was a vigilante. Like that episode was probably one of the best episodes of the entire season. That I remember more from that episode than I do almost the rest of the season.
Because it was awesome. I mean, literally, like,
It was, yeah,
awesome. And I mean, it's just. I mean, I just. There is so much to digest. I mean, so Sister Knight is the modern day policewoman, and we learned that the police now wear masks to protect their faces because of the Calvary, which this is the one thing I don't like about the series.
Because of the White Knight.
The one thing I don't like is that the Calvary, basically who are like a version of the Klan, adopted Rorschach's mask and Rorschach as like their image. And I hate that because now I feel like if
Watchmen in like the universe and the show and the story that they're telling and stuff. So like Ozymandias created the squid and sent it to New York and you know and other places around the world to get this to create this fear, this common enemy. But the journal, the Rorschach's journal, did get out there.
Yeah.
But as it was, Rorschach was kind of crazy, so to speak, to like the general, to the general population, and like it could be embraced by some, and just made to like be pushed down by like Ozymandias and stuff, because according to the show, it wasn't until I can't even remember how many years. But it was quite a few years later, a couple of decades, I think, before he had a pre-recorded message sent to the president. Robert Redford is the president.
President Redford.
He had a message sent to him in the show saying that he was responsible for it, that it was to unite the peoples of Earth and stop, you know, nuclear war and stop the apocalypse and things like that. So some people like embraced it, but like you can see where like a group of people would embrace something like that and fit it to their ideals. People do that. People have done that throughout all of history. They and I mean, just one of the easiest things to point out is religion. People interpret religions to suit their own needs,
Yes.
no matter how heinous
Yep.
they are.
Yep.
And
Or
so that's
they
what
can
the 7th Cavalry has done. And I don't think that people should think just because somebody wants to dress up like Rorschach, oh, they're dressed up like they're a racist because they're dressing up like Rorschach, because in this other show that was written and took place, 35, 40 years in the future, after this book was written, because they had the idea that these people interpreted it this way, that somebody who wants to dress up like Rorschach now in our world, in the real world today as a cosplay, should not be considered a racist person.
Oh, I know.
Just because of that.
Oh, I know that, and you know that. But we live in a world where everything is
we
crazy.
think kind of logically as opposed to
I mean, everything's been kind of crazy to where, I mean, how many times we see stuff where people don't realize, oh, wait, that's from this? Like, I mean, yeah, that was, it's not this new thing. This has been around for a long time. I never knew that. Yeah, well, that's kind of what happens sometimes with these things.
The cast of this show was phenomenal.
Dude, I'll tell you right now. I think he is an amazing actor, and I think he is extremely underutilized and underexploited. It's Tim Blake Nelson.
Yeah, he played Looking Glass, right?
Yes. I mean,
yeah.
I first came to really know him as, I can't remember what I saw first, if it was Holes or if it was Oh Brother, Where Art Thou with my dad. But, I mean, you think about him on, like, when he just is Looking Glass and before he takes the mask off, when he just kind of pulls it up and he has that slow kind of southern drawl and everything. Mm-hmm. He has a little bit of a scary intimidation to him. You're like, okay, who is this guy? And
right. And then you get his story. I love in that episode how they go back, and he was this religious, he was with this religious fanatical group who was kind of doing their thing. And he was inside that funhouse of mirrors, and he was tricked into, taking off all of his clothes by a girl, a woman from a gang. I think it was the Top Knots gang.
Women, man.
Well, she tricked him out of his clothes and stole all of his clothes and left him there naked. Well, then the freaking squid drops on New York. He's in this fun house full of mirrors, which actually protected him from the psychic blast. But he's lived in constant fear his entire life. The squid group therapy, the PTSD therapy group that he's doing, that he's involved in or whatever. The reflective material he wears, his mask is designed of that reflective material to protect him. The hat he wears is lined with that reflective material to protect his mind from a psychic blast to kill him.
And he's set up to almost where we feel as almost he maybe is like a sleeper agent for the cavalry. Like they kind of play it like he could be, but we're not sure. And then, I don't remember what episode ends where basically the cavalry showing up at his house and they break, and then the next episode is more like flashback. So we don't even know what happened to him.
Yeah, until he shows up to help.
And
which is really cool how the way he was captured and the way he was informed by Senator Keene
of the Keene Act.
Yeah, of the Keene Act, all the way back, that outlawed vigilantes back before Watchmen.
He's the son of the senator that did that, is what it is.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's just, the show has so many levels. The White Knight, because they killed police officers, which is why police officers are now allowed to hide their identities. the vigilantes, like, who are police officers who have like a moniker.
They're the
Like
detectives.
Sister Night.
They're
the.
I wish they would have gone into like the detectives are the ones that have like they're in like full on costumes, like Looking Glass, Sister Night, Red Scare, and wasn't Jane the Pirate or something like that?
Something like that. Yeah, she was a pirate or something. Yeah.
Like all the detectives, and they're all new because so many of the police force were either murdered or quit after that. They had to bring in all new people to be their police.
Yeah. Which that night has a very large through line. It's not just that, and it's not just why cops are wearing masks and stuff, but it's also about Angela and her husband, played by Yahya
Abdul-Mateen III.
Yeah.
Man, I like him.
Black Manta. He is great, man.
Dude,
he is fantastic. I loved him as Black Manta, and he was great in this show. And I did not expect. Huh?
I'm gonna go see Candyman just because he's in it.
Right. But and like, big reveal, he's freaking Captain
Dr. Manhattan.
Dr. Manhattan. Yeah, he's Dr. Manhattan.
His Dr. Manhattan is sweet. And his storyline is
really
so interesting of like how he's talking through time.
I did like the prosthetics that they used as well. And there was a reason kind of why he looked like him after he went back to being Dr. Manhattan.
Yes.
He didn't look like John Osterman.
Yes. It's very well thought out. I even like the meta content of like the advertisement for this TV series that's supposed to tell the stories of the Minutemen that you're following. Like, tonight's true hero is going to tell the story of blah, 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 blah. We have that.
Right. Yeah, because wasn't there like a show or something, and it was like a show, and then it was Hooded Justice in that show?
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like one of these kind of wink, because we're following this show, like, that's Hooded Justice. That's his story. But really, it's not.
This is his story. Yeah, this is his story. What you're really seeing, that's a Hollywood made up story.
So, it is all extremely well written, and it leaves you satisfied.
So what was really one of the things I thought was really one of the coolest things I thought about the show, besides everything we've already talked about, was the Dr. Manhattan stuff. Like, in the books, when you read about Dr. Manhattan in Watchmen and in Doomsday Clock, he experiences everything at the same time. Yes. Like, he literally, like, he experiences time as one. I don't really know how to, like he's experiencing 1956 the same time he's experiencing whatever 2026 that he's in. Like, he's experiencing all of his life, everything that he's ever, all at the same time. So, like, when he's talking to Angela and she asks him to ask Will from frickin' 10 years ago or something, like, how did you know that Judd was part of, cavalry or whatever? And he didn't know. Like, she led him there from the future through Dr. Manhattan. It was wild.
Yeah. And it's like
and you don't even really think about that, like, through Dr. Manhattan's inner monologue of him experiencing all this time simultaneously. You don't really think about actually sending a message through time like that. You know what I mean? Through Dr. Manhattan. But, like, they did it, and that was amazing.
We do get to meet Lori, an older Lori, who's very...
Played by Jean Smart, and she stole every freaking scene she was in.
Yeah. She's very, like, what's the word? Road weary, worn down, hates masks, hates it all. We never get any kind of dialogue about Dan. And that's the one thing that kind of bummed me out, was there's nothing about what happened between her and Dan, a.k.a. Night Owl 2. where he is, what happened to him.
The only thing I heard in the show was that Dan or Night Owl or something, I forget what they called him, but they said he was in jail.
See, I thought I heard
Like,
that,
that was-
but like,
That was it. That was literally the only thing. And I think maybe Senator Keene was trying to be, like, after I absorb the powers, this and that, the world's gonna be different, and like Dan will be out of jail because the world's gonna be a different place and this and that. But
Senator Diaper Wearer.
yeah, that was funny. He was wearing the black diaper that that Dr. Manhattan has in some of his images from the book.
I mean, there is so much to this show. We could go. Like I said, we could go episode by episode because of just how well it's written, how much it jumps around.
And they had freaking Jeremy Irons in the comic accurate Ozymandias suit.
So what I loved is we have this whole side story with Jeremy Irons, and he is on Europa, and Dr. Manhattan basically sent him
one of
there,
Jupiter's moons.
and he lives in this like bubble basically, and
It's literally a world. Dr. Manhattan created a world that life could exist and grow, and he created it like in this bubble on Europa, and has a conversation with Ozymandias and sends him there.
And, Ozzy has a machine that basically randomly rains down squids just to let people know that the aliens are still out there. And
yeah, as Lady True puts it, like the same tired story or something.
Lady True, who is the daughter, basically, of Ozymandias, because her mother stole his semen and impregnated herself.
Yeah, that was funny. I'm sample whatever number, for something da. Like, and he knows that sample came up missing. That's why he doesn't deny it. That's why he doesn't even argue the fact after she kind of rambles off that information.
And I mean, her story and all the stuff that she does is fascinating, with just like how smart she is, what she's trying to accomplish, because she's working with Will, because she wants the power of Dr. Manhattan, because they've realized how to steal his power and how to kill him. It's very interesting. I have to go back and really watch it again and take some notes.
What was crazy is like she knew what like the senator was doing, and she knew what the 7th Cavalry was doing, but she knew it wasn't going to work.
Yes.
Because they didn't have the right calculations and things like that. And so Senator Keene exploded from trying to siphon this power, and she's just like, oh yeah, like I knew that was going to happen, and this is what we're going to do, and that's not going to happen to me, and I'm going to take his powers.
Liquefied himself.
Yeah.
I mean, it was intense, and there's just so much, we find out, on the White Knight, Angela's partner is murdered, so her and her husband, Cal, adopt her partner's children and are raising his children, which I thought was awesome.
It's the White Knight that everybody identified Cal as being Dr. Manhattan, because Ozzy gave him this thing, this metal ring, which was basically the hydrogen atom that he has on his head.
Yep.
Gave him a ring that he implanted, that he put inside of his brain, and that erased his memories, erased his identity, who he was, but stressed unless you use your powers in defense without even knowing it. And that's what happened on the White Knight. He sent away the cavalry, teleported the cavalry miles and miles and miles away or whatever. And that's how Lady True knew. That's how Will knew, or that's how Senator Keene knew, the cavalry knew. That's how they identified that Dr. Manhattan was no longer on Europa. But it was really cool how Ozzy remembered how she said she had a probe on its way to Europa to see him at a specific time. So, like, Ozzy calculated the time when the satellite would be there on Europa, and he spelled out an SOS, save me daughter or something in bodies from like the clones. I'm guessing that's the type of life that sprung up from Dr. Manhattan's experiments he did.
Yeah.
You know, I think those come from Dr. Manhattan. I don't think those quite come from Ozzy.
No, because they're the clones
responsible
of people that helped take him in as a child during the war. Him and his father, as they were trying to escape Europe during World War II, right?
Oh, really? I didn't catch that.
Because they were the couple that had that house. That's why it's those two people every time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so layered. It's definitely a beautiful follow-up to Watchmen. If you're a fan of the book, you'll love the show. Because I kept trying to figure out why Tulsa, like what the significance was, and they play it out beautifully. They make
absolutely
everything make sense and take all the.
I mean, the real world massacre, the racial, all the racial text that it has, Will being Hooded Justice, connecting to the Watchmen universe, and then Cal being Dr. Manhattan. Yeah, like. I mean, it's its own thing, and it's amazing and so well thought out, but then it's also connected to the comic. Yeah, it is fantastic. I mean, it took me a while to watch it. I didn't watch it when it first came out, when it was released every Sunday night. But it was a few months later that I finally sat down and watched it, and oh my God. Like, I'm glad I wasn't spoiled on everything in the time it took me to watch it.
I started rewatching it with Jania, and we're not done, but rewatching it, there's a lot of stuff you pick up on.
Right.
And it is interesting, the stuff that was in there that you might not have caught before. I'm just thinking, like, the fact that, like, Ozzy's story is, like, kind of taking place in, like, a short past, because, like, we get that shot of, like, a gold statue of Ozymandias, but we find out that's actually him.
Yeah, it was interesting because they were like, he looks so old. Like, why does he look so old? Last time he was seen, you know, he wasn't an old man because, you know, he basically lived in Karnak for the majority of the rest of his life, up until that point, his Antarctic base. And even Jean Smart, she says, why does he look old? And she gives him this revere for elders in the Vietnamese culture and stuff like that. And, it turns out it's Ozzy, like, preserved, like, in stasis. It's actually him.
And I mean, it's all super fascinating. The fact that, like, we find out that Judd, like, was cavalry, and I wish we could have got more of his story, and his wife kind of knew, and, like, she got the drop on Lori.
Who goes by Lori Blake now.
Yeah.
She's using her father's last name, Edward Blake, the comedian.
Which I found interesting. That's why I said, like, they just didn't give me enough about what was up with Dan, you know? Because I was like Night Owl. So.
Yeah. If they did a season 2, I mean, Damon Lindelof said that he was done, that he told the story he wanted to tell. Which is fine. I mean, you give a great miniseries. I mean,
Yeah.
great. You know what I mean? Like great mini series. Wash your hands of it. That's all there is. That's that's fine. It's fantastic.
The only thing I could say is if you did a sequel and you did do it like an anthology, maybe follow like Night Owl. If you want to connect it back to the original Watchmen, do Night Owl and, don't touch the characters that we experience right now. Give us all new characters and a new storyline.
Right. Because there are more characters throughout the Minutemen and Watchmen that could potentially lead to something further if it's well thought out by the right mind, by the right storyteller.
And I feel like this series was not like a quick series. Like, it took time to develop and to write and to plan. But yeah, I mean, all I can sing is high praise for it. Check it out. It'll definitely stay with you.
I mean, it's amazing how it came out. And it's not like it's not like racism or the racial debates or everything that's happening right now, the protests and the riots and things like that. It's not like any of that's new. It happened before Watchmen, but the way that Watchmen happened, and then the world, the entire world, not just kind of like a city thing or a state thing or even an American thing, even though it's predominantly, everything that's going on around the world is because of what's happening in America. But it literally, like, the entire world is protesting because of the things that had happened after Watchmen. So just like the timing of it, I mean, just couldn't be better, to make like such a strong impact.
Yep. It's that whole art imitating life, life imitating art kind of thing, and it's amazing. It's crazy, and
Yeah, this show gets like, I mean, how many Emmy nominations did it get? Like, wasn't it like 20 something Emmy nominations, and then the next closest was like 16?
I mean,
or 13, something like that.
All I'll say is yes.
Yes. It is definitely an Emmy award-winning show. I mean, fantastic cast, the story, the writing, the direction, the effects. I mean, across the board, this was a top-notch show.
There's nothing, like I said, there's nothing bad I can say about it. There's no like, oh, I would do this differently kind of thing like I'm prone to do when there's something I'm really passionate about, because I'm a creative person, The only thing I could say was like just the racism maybe being attached to Rorschach, but you know what? I haven't read Watchmen in a while, so I'm going to go back and reread it because maybe Rorschach was more racist than I realized in the book. I'm more familiar with the film just because I've watched it a lot.
He did say things, I remember in the book, he did say things about like people being gay or people being Jewish. You know what I mean? So like he had some anti-Semitism to him.
It doesn't surprise me. So
you know what I mean? Like he had that to him. That was part of his character. He wasn't like a flat out racist, but he also, he was definitely, he did have anti-Semitism in his character.
So, but anything else you got to say, James? Anything else you want to wrap up before we head off here and to the wild blues of middle of the day, Ohio?
Nope, I'm good.
All right. Well, remember, people.
So,
Look up in the sky.
Look up in the sky.
Look in the sky.